And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Probably not. Roger, planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Say again, SPD off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast of GPS 3. My name is Adrian Beil. I'm your host for today's mission, and I am joined by Alex here. Alex, how is it going?
It's going. A whole different thing is whether the weather will allow this to go today. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely, and I will quickly address that. You're not seeing the rocket as of right now because we had some, with the weather also impacting, there was some trouble getting some cameras up, but we are working on that and we'll get you more views in a second. But we will see how this develops with the weather being a bit iffy. And the person I will use here to ask about that weather and why it's in a bit strange situation is Sawyer. Sawyer, how is it going?
A light breeze. The question is, will the lightning and the thunder move out of the way and out of the range in time for them to start fueling, or will they get a waiver so that they can? That's going to be the big question.
Yeah, and I think you were cut out there at the beginning, but like quickly recapping, there was a thunderstorm. There's no longer a thunderstorm, but so yeah, let's dive into that. Why is that important? Like, okay, it's green now. Why should there be any issue? Like,
well, the issue is
why shouldn't there?
I mean, for fueling, the problem is that they need to not be in a phase 2 lightning warning, which is what we have been in for the last hour or so. The issue is, of course, you don't want the rocket being struck by lightning or any critical ground infrastructure. Yes, insert your 4 towers question. But the other issue is the cumulus cloud rule. So even if there isn't lightning striking to the ground, there is the concern that when the rocket does lift off, it could actually fly through the clouds and create its own lightning and damage on onboard systems. So that's why they're very, very closely monitoring this. But the concern would be if they get the board clear so that they can actually go for the propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes. Because otherwise, I think they'll have a window. It's just, will they get the go to start fueling?
Actually, they are, I think, at the very end of the window, correct, Alex?
Yeah, the window goes until 1:38. They're targeting currently 1:37, so they only have 1 minute of leeway essentially. So pretty much the end of the window. It's a very short window, only 15 minutes.
1 minute, that's all you need. Alex, let's dive into what is actually on the top of the rocket today. Of course, we should answer that question here because there's a reason why Falcon 9 is launching today. And spoiler, it's not a Starlink. So what are they launching?
Yeah, so today they are launching a GPS satellite for the US Space Force. Now, you may have seen that the GPS satellite today is the Space Vehicle 8, essentially the 8th GPS 3 version satellite. But SpaceX calls it GPS 3.7. The whole reason for that is because for them, it is their 7th GPS satellite being launched. Remember that one of the GPS 3 satellites was launched on a Delta 4 rocket way back when, right? that was a long time ago, actually. And so, so this is why this mission has like two different names. You might have seen 3-7 somewhere, but the mission is carrying Space Vehicle 8. So other places put SV08, for example. And so this is the whole reason. Now, as GPS satellites, you may have heard this in the past that they go into medium Earth orbit. So we expect this to go not directly to their final orbit, but it's going to put it in a transfer orbit, right? Essentially like an oval shape orbit, where the highest point of that orbit will be essentially very deep there in medium Earth orbit, right where the GPS will end up with its own thrusters. It'll just use its own engines to get there. And so that'll be, if it is like the last GPS mission that they did on Falcon, that should be around 400 to 20,000 kilometers, right? And today's mission, because the GPS satellites fly in a 55-degree orbit, right? So that means it's going to head northeast. So if you are on the east coast of the United States and you are wanting to see a northeast launch of Falcon 9, well, I'm sorry, because today it's daylight, right? And so, I mean, I will try. If I were you, I will try and watch this, right? But, yeah. Daylight doesn't make it easy to see rocket launches when you are far away.
Yeah, what's the good old saying? Like, you miss every single rocket launch you don't try to watch. Like, that's about the saying, I think. Sawyer, let's go ahead.
No, I was what to that phrase anyway. Go ahead.
Yes, about the phrase, right? So, of course, GPS free today. Do we have any more interesting, like, why are there? So my GPS works in my car, right? So why are we launching more GPS satellites? Is there any need? Is there a replacement going on?
Yeah, this is super important because these are actually upgraded. One of the biggest concerns is radar and GPS jamming across the globe. You've probably heard stories about it. So these newer GPS-3 satellites that they've been launching are upgraded in their ability to counteract and prevent that jamming so that your signal or military signals don't get disrupted. In addition, these satellites not only have a military band, they have a special band that will be used for aircraft, again, to avoid radar jamming issues, and that they expect to have online next year, but they want to get all the satellites up and running.
There we go, and we just got an update from SpaceX that I will quickly note here, that the propellant load on the Falcon 9 is indeed underway, so they cleared it apparently in time, and Falcon 9 will attempt to launch GPS 37 today. Teams are keeping an eye, however, on the weather, which is currently 50% favorable for liftoff. So, maybe.
That's the best the forecast has looked, honestly, because originally it was 45%, then we were seeing 20%, now we're seeing 50. I will take 50-50 odds.
Flip a coin.
I mean, it was always 50-50, right? It either launches or it doesn't.
Schrodinger's rocket.
Alex, Satya is wondering, considering this is a non-Starlink mission, will we get to see live views until payload deployment?
In theory, except for the previous GPS mission, we'll talk about that previous mission in a second. Except for that one, the previous GPS missions did have coverage all the way to satellite deployment. So perhaps, they'll have that sort of coverage. I'm not sure if we are going to be live for that long because the deployment is like 1.5 hours into the flight. Yeah, we're still a little bit tired from Starship, let's be honest, right? But yeah, I can go into the previous mission right here, right now, which is the previous mission was sort of more secretive. They were trying to use it sort of like it was literally called Rapid Response Trailblazer, RRT-1, and the whole reason for that is because that originally was supposed to be launched on Vulcan, but Vulcan was taking time to be certified, and then they moved it to Falcon 9. And when they did that, they were sort of doing it as a hush-hush sort of situation where they were trying to do it quickly and without telling anybody. And so even the webcast was also sort of like, very secretive and everything. And then after the mission, then they said, hey, this is a GPS satellite, right? This mission is also like that one in the sense that this satellite was also meant to fly on Vulcan, and then they moved it to Falcon 9 in a quick manner, a quick pace. Essentially, less than 3 months ago, it was moved to Falcon 9. But they are at least now saying that we're doing this ahead of time. So there's some differences.
And there's another switch coming up, right? Because then one Falcon Heavy GPS moved to Vulcan again. Like there's some switcheroos going on.
Yeah. So the current these are the GPS 3 satellites, right? There's going to be so those go from 1 to 10. There are going to be 10. The next two, the 9 and the 10th satellites, those are planned to launch on Vulcan. Now, the next generation of satellites, of GPS satellites, those are called the GPS 3F satellites. They are a little bit more upgraded. They have different technologies as well. And there are going to be more of them. It's like more than 2,000 of them up there. And in order to sort of fast track the way that they are deployed, instead of having Falcon 9, like today's mission, putting them on a transfer orbit, the idea was some missions might launch on Falcon Heavy, and instead of being on a transfer orbit, they'll be inserted directly into their final orbit, saving fuel, mass, etc., but also time to get them to deployment, to operational point in their lifetime, essentially. So that was the idea with the GPS 3F1, I think it was, like the first of the 3F satellites that was going to be launching on a Falcon Heavy. Instead, they've put it on a Vulcan, and they've switched around with Falcon 9, which is very nice.
I also want to quickly add that I earlier today forgot to mention two people who are working behind the scenes here on today's launch broadcast. Both Julia in the field working the camera for today, and also we have Jay Keegan behind the scenes operating the stream. And I totally interrupted that earlier to talk about the weather. So I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
We never do that.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? Like that could never happen. Jay will understand. Let me. Sorry, this is a good one. John here is wondering why they have two radars so close to the pad.
Yeah, so those are radar domes or radomes that they have over at Pad 40. When we have our camera set up at the 39A press site, you can't really see them as well. But again, you get that radar, you get the accurate forecasting and all of the information that you need near the pad. And I'm not going to make any further comments about the radomes just for the sake of keeping the stream clean.
But they are not that super close to the rocket, right? Like they are.
Oh no,
it's a bit of perspective.
It's about a mile away or so. So basically, where we are now, there's our road, there's another road in front of that, and then there's the pad. So that road in front of us is about a mile away, and then the pad is beyond that. So that road, you may see cars driving by it. That's totally fine. They are not within any restricted areas.
There we go. So
Yeah,
a bit of an optical illusion here.
Yeah, this is not like Starbase where suddenly you see a car driving by and you know very much that they are violating protocols and rules and whatever. That's a military base where they are, right? And so that rocket, if there's any cars close to it while it is getting fueled, I can tell you that that's not nominal. So if you see such a thing, think probably that it's the opposite, that it just looks like it is close, but it is actually not close.
There we go. I quickly will mention some support here with a very special one, because I'm seeing Wilbo Baggins here with a super chat saying, celebrating 67 soul orbits, or 39,128,000,000 miles, all at 1,000 miles per hour. I did the math, it checks out. Wilbo, happy birthday. I'm glad we can do this together here on a stream today. So Wilbo, very, very regular here in chat and also very regular supporter. Thank you so much, Wilbo, and I hope you celebrate your birthday.
Today.
And then we also have Wilbo with another 5 Red Team memberships gifted. You know that on the birthday others gift you, yeah? You know, like you're getting it reverse, Wilbo. Thank you so much for that. And then we have The Guardian with a happy birthday, Wilbo, with another super chat. Thank you so much for that. And 98 Central with becoming a Capcom member. Thank you all for your very, very generous support. And again, happy birthday.
I've in fact seen already 98 Central joining the Discord because they are now a Capcom member.
Perfect.
So...
Yes,
Alex, I think
Alex 60 pings.
Alex, I think I found a question that you don't even have a spreadsheet for.
Oh dear.
Joe is wondering, what was the lowest probability of Go that Falcon 9 has ever launched in?
Oh, I don't have a spreadsheet about that, but I do remember there was at least one where it was like 10% and it launched because it was like 10% the day before on the forecast from the day before. But Florida being Florida, the weather rapidly changed, and within like an hour of the launch, it was already 50%. And then by the time we went into, propel and load and whatever, it was already 80% favorable. And so I guess you could count that. But I wouldn't be able to tell, at the time of fueling, for example, because this is a thing with the forecast that it changes over time, right? Because they are constantly sort of renewing their forecast and making decisions based on that. And so that's why sometimes, I don't want to say the S word, but sometimes they've S-worded a mission before doing, for example, stage 2 LOX load. And if you look back 5 years ago, we had that same thing with Demo 2. When the first attempt, they went into propellant load, but they stopped before loading the second stage with liquid oxygen. And so they went eventually with May 30th as the launch. So, 5th anniversary already of Demo 2.
Yeah, the lowest that I've seen personally from just my experience has been 20%. I think of at least 2 missions, if not more, just 2 off the top of my head, though, where it was 20% going into the window and they still went, which technically at one point today, I believe it did drop to 20%. So
wasn't also I think Demo 2 or Crew 1 super low?
Demo 2.
One of them was,
yeah. Which
yeah.
was
Demo 2 was like a
5 years
miracle to
ago.
launch, right?
Wasn't that like 5 years ago this month?
Yeah. May 27th, that first date, and then they delayed to the May 30th launch date.
So today, the anniversary today. Oh, I feel old.
Yeah, and yesterday was the 5th year anniversary of, if that were methane, it will be burning in the flare stack. Because SM4 happened the day before of Demo 2.
Yeah, for everybody that thinks it was just yesterday, Demo 2 was indeed half a decade ago.
Oh.
I hope nobody there.
I'm gonna feel so old when we hit the 10-year anniversary of the first Falcon 9 landing. That's coming up
Also,
later this year.
There's also 10th anniversary of Falcon Heavy rapidly approaching, right?
Next year.
No, 2 years after that.
Yeah, 2 years.
2028.
No, next year is 15 years since the end of the space shuttle.
Yeah.
Yes, I have problem with the word developed. I see it, Chris.
Someone saying half a decade sounds so much longer than 5 years.
True.
Right? It's true.
Yes, it is.
If instead of half a decade we wait just 40 seconds, we can get to the T-minus 20-minute event.
Totally not stretching these answers, yeah.
I would totally throw a quick question for you here, Alex, before that happens. Creative Bytes is wondering, are these first-time used fairings?
Yes, I believe it is 231. Hang on, because I know Sawyer gave me the numbers. Okay, thank you. 222 and 231. Those are the serial numbers for these fairings. Yeah, it's way up in chat, and so it was a bit difficult to find.
Yeah, I saw it with my eyes.
And now that we stretched this time successfully, Sawyer, I'm coming for you for the next question, which of course is, the Falcon 9 will vent in just a few seconds from now. Sawyer, do you mind explaining to me what exactly is that vent that we are about to see?
We will hopefully see, yes, the T-minus 20-minute, 20-second vent.
Hang on, because it could be that they are not targeting the top of the minute. Because we are assuming that it is 1:37:00. But if it is a little bit later, then also the T-minus 20-minute vent will also be later.
This doesn't count as a jinx, right? What I just performed. I'm
Hope
just
not.
asking.
There we go. I think that's it.
Let's see. You see it earlier than us, so
Pretty sure I could see it. I'm just double checking my camera.
there
oh,
it
there we
is.
go.
Through it. Yeah. Oh, now you definitely see it in person. Yes, there is the 20-minute, 20 seconds or 19-minute, 20
Okay,
seconds.
that looked like a
event.
minute off. So maybe it's 38 instead of 37.
So
SpaceX,
Sawyer,
make up your mind.
but while we update that clock, Sawyer, what is that vent?
Yes. So that vent signals that they are done with loading the RP-1, the rocket propellant 1, onto stage 2. So what they're going to do now is they are going to condition the lines for the liquid oxygen that will flow through it next. The LOX is a heck of a lot colder than the RP-1 that is loaded in. So as a result, they run some through the lines so that they start chilling it down and condition it so they don't thermally shock it by putting all of this super chilled propellant through it and potentially causing cracks. So that is why we see the vent, and once that vent is done, that will mean that LOX load is underway, which should be at about T-minus 16 minutes.
There we go. That was a bit of a tense minute. And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would say that this means we are now targeting the very last second of the window, correct?
Yeah, that's the thing. When SpaceX says things like, it's hour and minute, they never said the second, right? And so it could be anywhere from 137.00 to 137.59. And as we saw, it's most likely 137.59, or at least, within 5 seconds of that, right? And so, yeah, it just probably means that they went all the way till the end of the window. But that's why I was saying, like, hang on, just wait, don't panic, right? Because sometimes this happens. We don't have, like, for Starlink, for example, they do tell certain trackers out there of Starlink information and whatnot. Like, for example, Celestrack, they tell them things like, the T0, the sub windows, and whatever. This is a GPS mission. They don't tell that stuff. And so the T0 to the second can be very deceiving. But thankfully, we have that T-minus 20-minute vent.
And if I could just chime in here, by the way, we heard over the speakers that the Phase 2 lightning warning is terminated here. Phase 1 is still in effect for
Nice.
parts of the Cape, but Phase 2 is terminated.
This is slowly, but I'm not finishing the sentence. If I finish the sentence, yeah, I think everybody was aware what I was about to say, but I will not say it, Sawyer. Okay?
Thank you.
Let's see. This is an interesting question, Alex. I'm throwing this to you. Is rainwater a potential source of excess weight degrading Falcon's performance? For example, if it freezes during prop load, is ice buildup a concern for Falcon 9 performance?
Well, think about it. If the ice gets too large, it'll be heavier, and therefore it'll be easier for it to fall. Like, you got to think about it. There's a limit to how much stickiness, if you will, that frost has to the wall of the tank. And so if you add more water that then becomes ice, there's a point in which, that ice will just fall off because the stickiness, so to speak, of the ice cannot keep it on the tank. And so I don't think fully adding, like, rain and everything will be a problem, because I'm sure well before that it hits that limit that, it's like a physical limit. I don't know. I cannot think of any other sort of similarities that I could point out, but it's essentially just that, right? Like, there's a point where the ice just becomes too heavy that the forces keeping it together, it just cannot hold it together, and so it just falls off. And then when the engines ignite and the thing starts to fly, it becomes a lot easier to shake it off.
Thanks for that song in my head.
Me too. Oh my gosh. I thought we were
Yes.
gonna
I mean, Taylor is trending today, so
Yep, I saw that. And 98 Central Sawyer here is asking, will the extended Falcon fairings fly anytime this year?
Um, this year, that's a great question. At this rate, we haven't really heard many updates on them for a while. We saw the extended fairings that were kind of hanging out at Pad 40. But honestly, I don't have an answer. I don't know if SpaceX has an answer of if that will actually happen. Alex, I don't know if you've heard more than I have, but again, this is all SpaceX time.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's one of those things that, if a customer needs it, they will probably tell you. If they don't need it, they will probably just not really tell anything, because it's like, well, we don't need it. So like, for example, Vast, they said if they fly their Haven 2 modules, they're going to need Falcon Heavy and the extended fairing. If Gateway ever launches, the first 2 modules are going to be launching together on Falcon Heavy, and that will also need the extended fairing. The military doesn't seem to have announced anything for any of their upcoming missions on Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy. So I'm going to guess that maybe they don't need extended fairing on their missions. But that's pretty much it.
There we go. So yeah, that's the quick answer to that. A quick follow-up question, actually. Did we ever get like a confirmation if that Falcon, like extended Falcon fairing will fly also on Falcon 9, or will it just be Falcon Heavy?
I'm mostly sure it can also fly on Falcon 9. I'm just not sure if it's needed, because when you have a payload that big, with that volume, it's probably also very heavy. So you probably start needing the Falcon Heavy instead of the Falcon 9. But that's my pure guess. They do, on their users guide, on their Falcon user guide, they do advertise, we have Falcon 9 extended fairing and Falcon Heavy extended fairing. Like, you can fly Falcon 9 regular fairing, Falcon 9 extended, Falcon Heavy regular, Falcon Heavy extended. Like, whatever you want, we have it for you. But again, I cannot imagine something that is that huge and not heavy enough, right? Will have to be, I don't know, like a balloon, something that is very lightweight.
I want to see a bunch of balloons launching in a Falcon 9 fairing then be deployed. That would be funny. Sawyer, we talked a bit too little about it earlier, but let's go a bit more into detail here. Where's this rocket actually flying? Which direction is it going? What's the Falcon 9 flight path for today?
It is going up into space. Next question. No, I'm kidding. You're welcome. So yeah, this one is the very rare northeast trajectory coming from the Cape. We don't get to see that many of them, especially with the way the Starlink groups have been lately. But this one is going towards the northeast, and this one will be going into a medium Earth orbit. Of course, this will just be dropping it off in a transfer orbit up to this point, but then once it gets into space, it will be farther out for where basically most of the other GPS satellites are located, within that same kind of swatch there.
There we go. Thank you so much. And let's also quickly hit recovery here, Sawyer. Where's this booster going?
This one is going downrange. There is a shortfall of gravitas located downrange for it to catch the booster, booster 1092. And then I believe it is Doug is the one downrange to recover the fairing halves, which, as Alex pointed out, with the numbers that we saw, are believed to be new ones.
Yeah, I can for sure confirm that, because earlier there was a joke in our back channel made about not great Bob with the weather, and Alex in fact corrected that to be no, it's Doug. So yes, I know that.
Booster again. I meant booster to land on. Darn you, Starship.
It's once it's stuck in your head, right? Like, it would be cool if they suddenly start catching Falcon 9s. However, rather unlikely. Speaking of Starship, I will use this quick transition and see if Jay is picking up my throw here. We still have some units left of our Flight 9 patch in our store, because hey, we love to celebrate big launches here, and of course Starship is one of these. So if you go to the collections at the top and then go to the Starship collection, you will be able to see multiple items of merch that are related to this flight, including the Flight 9 patch. And then also we made sure that this time it wouldn't explode over Turks and Caicos. So we made a patch that shows that it explodes over Turks and Caicos. And as you know, always the opposite of what we put our patch on is happening. So there's this special shrug patch that you can still order for about 58 hours. That's the pre-order period. After that, it will stop. It will be gone forever, and we will get these out hopefully around July. So this is like a special little occasion that we wanted to make, and there's also other merch items in there that celebrate the ship reaching Seco finally again. So shop.nasaspace.com, again, probably the best way to support us because you get something in return. So if you like that, and if you also want to make maybe like some gifts and everything, make sure to check out that page. Thank you so much for everybody who supported that the last few days, by the way. And with that, let's go back to this Falcon 9 with just 10 minutes to go on the dot. Wow. Sorry, I was very happy about my scheduling there. Alex, there's a gray stripe on this Falcon 9, right? So
Yep.
it's hard to see on this view, but in general, there is a gray stripe on the Falcon 9. So what is that?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning before, this is heading to a medium transfer Earth orbit. So it's going to be sending this satellite out there into a rather elliptical orbit. It's not all the way out to its final orbit, but it's a rather elongated and far out orbit. Now, what that also means is that this second stage will be doing a 1 hour, until payload deployment, it'll take about 1.5 hours. But then, after payload deployment, it needs to also survive for a few more hours to also perform a deorbit burn. Because unlike some of the other, GTO missions and things like that, this one is coming back. So because of that, they need the gray stripe to keep the. If you see, it's only in one part of the tankage of the second stage. That is the kerosene tank, the RP1 tank, and if you keep it very, very cold, it can either freeze or even if it's liquid but it's very cold, it can have like a very viscous fluidity, like it can just be not as fluid as it usually is. And so the engine will not like that if they have it like that. So they keep the gray stripe there to be able to get some of that more sunlight, keep it warm during the coast phase, during that time in space that they're going to be being there. And that is what they call the mission extension kit. That allows the second stage of Falcon 9 to stay up in space for a prolonged period of time. They also usually have like an extra COPV for the helium pressurization or the spin up of the MVAC engine and things like that. Or they have things like extra batteries. I don't know. Hang on. Can we go back to that picture again? Because there's another thing. You might notice that first stage is missing one of the logos. It doesn't have the Falcon 9 logo. But what's more, on the other side of the booster, on the tower side, it doesn't have a SpaceX logo. And the whole reason for that is because this booster was originally created as a Falcon Heavy side booster, but it is being used as a Falcon 9 booster. And we'll see sometime later this year a Falcon Heavy center core being used as a Falcon 9 booster. So just saying, be warned, we'll be covering that.
It's gonna be interesting to see how much weight and mass penalty they take on that Falcon Heavy center core, because it has some reinforcements, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see how many Starlinks that can launch.
Yep.
So that's gonna be a cool item to watch. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. Creative Bytes Sawyer is asking, I assume they can't go outside the countdown window using automatic systems, but is there any leeway or a fine if they launch like seconds outside the window, or is that impossible?
That is impossible. There is somebody on console from Space Launch Delta 45 that deals with the range around here. The range is specifically shut off at certain times in certain locations for that exact reason, to keep boaters out of harm's way, to keep pilots out of harm's way from a rocket flying their way, or in a worst case scenario, if there were any debris that were to go down nearby. As a result, they are carefully calculated. They do all of the math on it. Plus, in terms of the orbits they're hitting, a couple of seconds can make a dramatic difference. So you will never see it go beyond the window.
Yeah, the word "fine" here is very nice. That would spark a huge investigation to word it like that. If that's the correct way to say it, because I feel like the range would not be very happy to see launches outside of the launch window.
No, definitely not.
They would actually not like that.
Which, as we get into this part of the window here, by the way, with the engines chilling and getting ready for the strong back retract, I'm going to get my camera set up here and leave you in the capable hands of Adrian and Alex, folks.
Thank you so much, Sawyer. Good luck capturing a rocket.
Thank you. By the way, there's a range helicopter flying overhead, ironically, as we talk about that.
Alex, I have some more questions here while we watch for the final few minutes here. Fighting Falcon is wondering, is SpaceX still getting a new launch pad at Vandenberg?
Yeah, that's going to be Space Launch Complex 6 for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. And who knows, maybe in the future we'll see Starship. I have hopes that maybe in the future, it's a big launch pad. It can probably fit.
There you go. So, yeah, I mean, if a launch pad works for like a Falcon Heavy, it's probably good working for a Falcon 9, right? So, that usually is how it works. We are just 5 minutes away. We talked about engine chill briefly here, Alex, but why is engine chill so important for a rocket? Like, what does Falcon 9 actually do when it engine chills?
Yeah, so the Merlin engine has obviously a kerosene pump and a liquid oxygen pump. The liquid oxygen pump, when the engine is running a lot of liquid oxygen through at very high speeds to get that engine running. So before any of that happens, in order to sort of, condition it and keep it at the same sort of temperatures that you will see when it is in operation, around 7 minutes before liftoff, they flow a little bit of that liquid oxygen through, just using essentially gravity and the tank pressure. They open the valves between the tank and the engine pump in order to flow that liquid oxygen through, and that sort of conditions that in order for the engine to properly operate. You don't want that to be like, suddenly it's at ambient temperature in Florida and then suddenly you flow high quantities of liquid oxygen through and boom, right? You don't want that. So that's why they do all of the engine chill. Now, right now in the countdown, as you can see, the strong back has retracted. Kerosene has been loaded on both stages. They should be wrapping up liquid oxygen load on the first stage very soon. And then on the second stage, that's usually around T-minus 3 minutes and T-minus 2 minutes in the count. And then we should go into the final few minutes, at 1 minute, they go into startup. That's when the Falcon 9 computers take over control of the countdown. And then they initiate a lot of, automated health checks on everything, relating to the pad, the rocket, and everything. And hopefully we get the final go for launch from the launch director around T-minus 45 seconds. So let's see.
There we go. That is indeed the next 2 or so minutes for us. We are approaching here rapidly. Alex, I'm throwing this one final question here for you before we go into this terminal account. Amiga Clone is wondering, is the public launch window always the same as the actual launch window?
Yeah, I mean, sure. As far as I know, the only thing is, I'm sure they're talking about the fact that sometimes they publicize a launch window and then it's actually like an instantaneous launch attempt or something within the window. That often happens within our own missions. For today's GPS mission, though, I'm not so sure that it is like that.
Yeah, I would say the wording here is the public launch window always includes every launch opportunity that is possible. However, it doesn't. It's a bit of a simplified version, and sometimes it does not actually specify every single restriction that might be in that window. That's making sense because you cannot launch in every single second of every given window all the time. That's not happening. That's not even happening in these Starlink windows.
You can see the stromback vent is back. Propellant load is complete on Falcon 9. We should be 25 seconds away from startup. Some venting from the stromback.
There we go.
As
Just
expected.
20 seconds from now, we should get that startup call. And then, of course, it is on Falcon 9's onboard computer to take it through the final steps of countdown. Of course, there will be also a final go for launch from the launch director at roughly like 35 or so seconds. Sometimes a bit later, sometimes a bit earlier. And Falcon 9 is indeed in startup. And just the rocket now. And we are waiting for the final go from the launch director, which will verify Falcon 9.
Their
Go for
LD is
launch.
go for launch.
Here
At
we
about
go. Against all odds today and against our weather expectation, it seems like Falcon 9 is about to launch. So, once again, we will hopefully see the ignition at the bottom of the 9 Merlin engines. You will see that usually a bit by the deluge system and a bit by a flash, but will be hard to see in daylight conditions. And then it's liftoff. So, 10 seconds from now. And there is the deluge. And we have ignition. And we have liftoff of the next generation of global positioning system satellites. Go Falcon, go GPS. And Falcon 9 is going through max Q, the moment of maximum aerodynamics pressure here, after a successful liftoff from pad 40. Looking good so far. How much longer do we have in this first stage burn, Alex?
It should be about 45 seconds to Miko main engine cutoff. That's when all 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will shut down. The 2 stages will separate, and then we'll have Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage igniting, and that'll be the start of a roughly 6-minute burn on this second stage, heading to first a parking orbit, and then it'll do another relight later on. But let's stay tuned here for Miko and stage separation.
Absolutely. That should be just 5 seconds from now. There you can see the plume in the air. And there's the shutdown. And we have stage separation of first and second stage. The booster now did the lifting duty. The second stage takes over, and the booster will return to a short fall of Gravitas stationed up in the Atlantic Ocean. There it is. Did they switch the overlay again?
No, it's the new overlay. Should be coming up
Oh.
on fairing separation.
Go. Well, now see if we get some onboard
They have
views of
not-
that.
Showed it.
Nope. That, I think, reduces our chances of onboard views today. But the booster coasting there on the left, and while the second stage boosts on the right. Oh, there it is. That was delayed.
There we go. No, I think they got the fairing time from a previous mission, from a Starlink mission. It's not even on the SpaceX website, the time. But the timing being very close to MVAC engine ignition, it did not match what we see on previous GPS missions. That's more of a Starlink mission. When they launch Starlinks, they open the fairing very early on because the Starlinks can take that. A customer mission will not take that. They are very picky with their satellites. So I'm mostly sure that they just got wrong the timeline underneath there.
There we go. We could also see a bit of the we could also see a bit of the storm that was passing through KSC there. That was visible on liftoff a bit from below. But overall, looking good so far. The entry burn is slowly coming up. Entry burn, of course, will be the moment where the Falcon 9 booster will significantly slow itself down by using its engines. How many engines, or what kind of entry burn profile do we expect in these GPS missions, Alex?
To be the usual 131 entry burn. Now that they have the new fancy overlays, we don't have to even explain it because you're going to see it. But we'll explain it anyways. So they're going to be lighting up first the center engine, then 2 of the outer engines. Now, the 3 engines that relight on the booster are always the same positions on the engine section. Essentially, they are engine 1, 5. Those are 2 of the outer engines. And then engine 9 is the center engine. So those 3 are the ones that always relight on the Falcon 9 because those are the ones that have the canisters for the TTEV, in order to be able to relight those engines. Essentially, the TTEV is the pyrophoric fluid that they use to be able to ignite the 2 propellants.
Go. Just seconds from now, we will see that entry burn. And again, it will be a 131.
Yep. Watch on the left-hand side, on the bottom. The altitude should change to the engine overlay, if I'm not mistaken.
See it? Maybe not.
Anytime now. If not, somebody messed up the automation. They may know who. There we go.
There we go.
There it
That's
is.
the engines.
And you'll see,
And
there
1,
we go. 1, exactly.
3. And it will stay on 3 for a bit. And actually, it's not the line, the direction of the line, correct? It's 90-degree offset to the line.
Yep. It's the offset 90 degrees essentially. But just to remind what I always say, that the timeline, not the timeline, the telemetry that you see there at the bottom is always ahead of the video live. There you can see what I just said. You saw first the shutdown of the 2 other engines on the telemetry, and then you saw it live, and then you saw the shutdown of the center engine on the telemetry, and then on the live video. It's always the same. The telemetry usually comes a little bit faster. Video needs processing and everything, so that's why it takes a little bit longer.
Now the booster goes into the atmospheric descent, where it will find a lot of atmospheric drag, and you will see usually some of that around the grid fins, the titanium grid fins around the Falcon 9 that are now used to steer, and you can already see them starting to wiggle around as Falcon 9 goes through the spicy part of the re-entry.
Yep, now using its grid fins to steer itself near the drone ship. Remember, it doesn't steer all the way, but it needs to get close. It's using its own body to sort of glide its way to the drone ship. And then at the landing burn, then it steers all the way to the drone ship doing that landing.
There, it's now a really, really dense part of the atmosphere. You can see how it's like the grid fin there is like fighting the atmosphere. And there's already the overlay for the landing burn. And there's a condition of the landing burn.
And you can see it's always the telemetry first, then the video.
Yep. And looking good so far. Stable descent.
Looked like we had Seco on the Merlin engine on the second stage. Look at the shadow.
And touchdown. B1092 touches down for the 4th time. Good one. That looked quite well.
Yeah. Happy booster, happy second stage already in orbit, and hopefully a very happy customer when in about an hour and a half from now they deploy that satellite.
Absolutely. So far, picture perfect against all big odds, honestly, because they quite had some weather issues today, but again, it worked. They made it happen, and that's how you get your launch cadence up, right? Not only launching at 100%, but also launching when the weather is not that optimal.
Yeah.
So everything good. What's the launch cadence actually saying right now, Alex? Do you have like an updated number where we are and what they might hit this year?
Hang on, I will actually have to, because I've been concentrated on commentary as one should.
Absolutely. I'm not
updated my spreadsheet. But last I saw it was like 157, 158 more or less.
So somewhere in like this. Is this still like in lines with their goals? Like, could they still make their goals?
It is not, but it, remember that SpaceX always sort of speeds up towards the end of the year.
Yep.
And so if they keep it up, if they speed up a little bit more, just a tiny bit more, then they can get to 170, which is their goal. I mean, the difference between 157 and 170 is 13 launches, which might seem a lot, but relative to the size of how many launches is 157, that's nothing, right? Like, what,
Absolutely.
10% or so? Yeah. Less than 10%, actually.
Absolutely. It's quite a crazy, that's the word I'm actually using, cadence they are running. And I mean, if you make it like I feel like sometimes people see this a bit too much black and white. It's like, yes, if they maybe only launch 165, they still made like 98% of their goal. Like, and it also depends on some factors they cannot control. For example, like, I mean, let's be real, tropical storm season in Florida is very much coming up. So they don't know if they maybe cannot launch for like a week.
They were really lucky today to be able to launch. Like, that weather was really, it was very, very dangerous, and then it cleared out. It was like, wow.
Yep.
So yeah, they got very lucky.
And these are the launches that you need to make this cadence happening, because they basically need to launch. I mean, basically every second day, right? So they have to make these happen, and they still have another launch coming up from the Cape as early as Sunday-ish, like Sunday, Monday morning.
By the way, I've got the number. I just updated my spreadsheet. 158 per my projection. But again, that projection assumes the cadence will remain the same over the year as what they have had so far, right? I want to also mention another thing. Right now, they have done 16 flights in May. If tomorrow's Starlink from Vandenberg holds, that will mean 17 launches in May. That is currently their record for how many launches they've been able to do in a calendar month. So they could match their own record,
nice.
Which is crazy.
Absolutely. And I think we also have Sawyer back here on comms, potentially checking in.
Yep, sorry about that. Hopefully you can hear me. Had a little technical hiccup there, but what a beautiful launch. To go from ridiculously dark gray clouds and pouring rain to beautiful blue skies where you could see it all the way through Miko, and because of the humidity, an amazing deep rumble today, this was one for the books, folks.
I will absolutely 100% admit that when I saw the weather at T-1 hour or 1:30, I didn't expect a launch today. I have no shame admitting that. So yeah, good job getting this rocket in the sky. And of course, we are also working behind the scenes to get you some replays and getting you some additional views. But as of now, we see the second stage still coasting, and that will coast until 1 hour and 3 minutes. that is where SpaceX will reignite that second stage. And speaking of replays, throwing it over here to the replays as we see what we have just witnessed 30 minutes ago. There it is on the right side. There goes Falcon 9. Always looks so tiny on these views sometimes. You're like, nope, not a tiny rocket.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm looking at it through a viewfinder most of the flight, and the same deal. It's like, oh, it's kind of small. It fills most of the frame, and then I poke my head out from around the camera, and it's just this tower that's flying.
Absolutely. On the right side, we just saw the LOX tank, by the way, kind of cool. And also, I want to point out this is a track from Neat Pizza, one of our operators. With a robotic assets. He's tracking from remote. Kind of cool. You can see some of these clouds that were an issue there a bit. But overall, I would say, oh, that's actually quite hard. Like reacquiring the rocket after losing it. Sorry, that's like the hardest thing, right?
It really is, especially if you're in a super tight zoom. The best thing is just do a quick zoom out, find it, and zoom back in. I had to do that once this flight as well. But it is very difficult because as it gets higher up, it is such a tiny mark, even with a very powerful lens. So props to Pizza on that.
Absolutely. So, and that's like with a remote shot. So props Pizza. This is, of course, fully cam. And we should. I'm always searching for it. It's always like, where is the rocket? I think it's on the right? Oh no, it's in the center. I'm very stupid. Was it visible the whole time, Jay? Was I just blind? Oh, okay. It was below Bob. Yeah, that's Bob there in the foreground. And that's another KC tracking cam. Oh, that's a static cam. There we go. That's the static cam showing it rising from the do I say forest? No. Just some greens from trees. There we go.
The shrubbery.
The shrubbery. There we go. Thank you, Sawyer. We talked. There were some talks about Sawyer about if this launch was a bit quieter than usual. What was your volume feeling for this one?
I think it all depends on the wind. The wind was definitely not blowing towards the KSC press site where a microphone is, so it may have sounded a little quieter. However, it was blowing directly towards me, so I can say with certainty this one had a lot of vibrato to it, a lot of vibrations, very deep rumble thanks to the humidity. And again, the wind just happened to be lucky in the right direction for us here.
Yep, and I think we could also hear the good old VAB sounds on liftoff. We heard that squeal noise. There's the replay from, I think, Julia's main tracking.
By the way, we cannot hear the VAB squeal from where this camera is located.
Yeah.
The viewers got an extra bonus.
Yeah, the viewers got it. There we go. Julia changing from static to the tracking here. And as this plays, and as you get to enjoy these beautiful views of the launch, I will start to thank people here, starting with Alex. Alex, we've talked so much the last few days, and I always enjoy it. So thank you so much for being on with me here, Alex.
Yeah, current launch is right. At least this time around, that second stage will not do any weird spinning. Knock on wood, of course, but yeah.
Absolutely. No weird spinning on that second stage expected. Sawyer, thank you so much for being on here as well, and also for rolling out today to the field.
My absolute pleasure. Again, I took a couple of still shots. I don't know if Jay had them or not because I can't see the preview. But we'll also post those on the socials, so keep an eye out for all the NSF socials for my shots. Plus, I did set up some remotes. Can't guarantee they worked with the rain and the time delay, but if they did, I will absolutely share them with everyone.
You're on X at the NASA man, correct?
Yep, or again, just follow all the NSF socials, because not only do you get to see all the latest news and all the happenings in space and notifications about flights, you also will get a retweet probably of mine so you can see it there.
There we go. Absolutely. I can always recommend that, especially also with the upcoming busy launch schedule. And then we had behind the scenes Jay Keegan operating today's launch and making sure that everything works and getting all the cameras and sound and everything ready. Thank you so much for that, Jay. And of course, this shot you see right now is being operated by Julia Bergeron, who operated the main feed camera for today. Thank you so much for that, Julia. And my name is Adrian Bile. I was your host for today's mission, and I enjoyed this GPS launch a lot. So thanks you all for watching, and we will see you all on the Flame Trench in just 3 hours from now. See you there.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FTE off. Say again, FTE off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?